Good evening and welcome to Livid Comics Lair. Tonight's guest is an American animation producer, comic book writer, talent agent, and co-founder of Innovation Publishing. He's also a CEO of Glasshouse Graphics. He's currently working on two graphic novels for Scheinman and Schuster, and he's putting out about 40 plus projects a month, guys. So quite an accomplishment and a very busy man. So please welcome our friend, Mr. David Campiti.
Hey, here we go. Here we go.
Tonight. Yeah. How you guys doing?
Doing okay. We're watching your intro. It's horror, sci-fi, suspense. I didn't think we were talking about my personal life. Let's do this.
Right at home. Yeah. So John's out drinking eggnog or something tonight for a holiday party. So he's off having gallivanting. So he won't be in tonight. So we'll see him on the next show. That's okay. Roger and I are here. We'll take this thing home. So no problem.
That'll work.
Yeah. But thanks for coming out, David. So we appreciate that. I know we had to reschedule last week, so appreciate your accommodation. And you might be the busiest man in the artistic world. So thanks again for taking the time today. So,
I made good use of the pandemic. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, me too.
We all can say the same. And David, just to start off, like I know that you have a kind of close relationship with my country, which is Brazil, and you have promoted so many great artists throughout the years. And how did that start? How did you get in touch with them?
Well, I tell you, everything kind of rolled into everything else. I started in the business almost 40 years ago, 1982, writing stories for Pacific Comics, which then led to packaging books for various publishers, and then eventually to being a publisher myself when I started Innovation in 1988. So we were doing stuff with artists that I knew and artists that were submitting. And I had to expand my reach because, the available good artists in the US 40 years ago or 35 years ago or whatever it was much more limited than it is now. So I managed to connect up with a fellow in Sao Paulo named Helcio Carvalho, who was he was handling translations for Marvel Comics into Portuguese and so forth. And I asked him if he knew any artists. He said, "David, I know so many artists you would not believe." and I said, I'd be interested in hiring some good artists. So he sent me. Back then, everything was sent FedEx. There was no email. There was none of that. So right. I got these FedExes of some originals and photocopies by all these wonderful, talented artists. And so I started hiring them. And that happened through 91, 92, and early 1993, when I decided to... I liked working with the artist more than I liked the actual publishing end of things. Spreadsheets and so forth aren't really my favorite thing to do. But working on the creative end, that's what I liked. So I came up with the idea of starting Glasshouse Graphics as an agency to represent the artists that I had started working with. And that gave me the opportunity to all these artists I couldn't find work for at my own company, Innovation. Well, I'd leave Innovation, keep those artists working there with the people that stayed there, and expand the horizons. So it took, because of I knew just about everybody in the business, that enabled me to very quickly expand out. So before very long, we were working for just about everybody, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, what Continuity, Eclipse, Now Comics, just all the publishers that were out then. And
that's amazing.
And it
Yep.
was all Brazilian artists because that was my connection, with exception of a few American artists that asked for my help, and I added them to the mix and just kept going. And
Yeah, I imagine that there's a big challenge because, here in Brazil, we don't usually speak English. And there's a challenge when it comes to translating the script to fellow Brazilians here, because it's not only about the language which you can learn throughout books, but it's about the culture, it's about what you meant to say when describing panels and landscapes and everything else.
yeah,
So I reckon you would have other professionals to help you out on that matter,
yeah.
such as
Well,
translators.
when I was doing that for the first 10 years of my business, I continued to work with Helcio de Carvalho, and then went in a different direction. And Clubs Jr., who just recently passed away, he was one of my artists who started his own studio, and he became Glass House's manager in Brazil for a couple of years. And then we went to a few other people along the way, because quite honestly, being an agent for a lot of people, especially creative types, you burn out as an agent after 2 or 3 years of it. It's like, okay, that's sapping too much of my energy. I want to get back to the creative side. So that's why over the years we've moved along with several different managers in Brazil. And right now we have MJ, who's handling it, and he's been doing it for a few years and doing a terrific job. And so those fellows have done the translations and coordinating for the artists who need them. But I'm discovering more and more artists that keep coming to me that know English well enough that they don't need a translator. Once in a while, they'll pop on and say, well, what did the writer mean by this? And I'll help them through the Americanisms, and that works out fine.
We gave Rogerio a American baseball story to handle as a Brazilian guest. We threw him right under the bus with that. So, but he's done a hell of a good job with it. So it's been great to see his work on Dead Ball. It's been fantastic. So it's been good times. So.
Yeah, when it comes to sports, like you could hand me down football, and I wouldn't know shit about it because I'm not a sports guy. I'm more of a martial arts person than anything else. And fighting scenes, we don't have much on that book. I would do great, but baseball is a challenge, and I love challenges because that's all about like the craft. But we're not here to talk about us.
Yeah.
I want to hear.
Some questions, David. Bring them. We'll answer for you. No problem.
All right. Yeah, David. And I've been reading your posts quite recently. Some of them tell some stories about applicants, and most of the stories are funny. Some of them are kind of like mishaps. And can you talk us through some of those mishaps? What are the common mistakes that people do?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Let me start with this. One of the things that I attempt to do, and everybody has an off day, a bad day, whatever, but what I at least attempt to do is everybody that submits stuff to me or brings stuff to me at a convention, I try to give them their moment, give them the attention that they should get. A story worth telling you. This is a sideline, and you'll probably need to bring me back to the main point.
Don't worry about it.
I did a Chicago Con once where this kid, didn't know how old he was, 16, 17 years old, comes up and says, how do I publish comics? All right, I'll sit down and talk to you. So I gave him the time. It was a light day, so I was able to give him 30 or 40 minutes talking to him about it. Figuring, he's a kid. I may never hear from him again. 3 years later, I hear from him. He's got a ton of money in hand. I said, okay, let's put on his show. Let's publish comics. And I have been providing regular artwork, lettering, and coloring for him for the past 15 years.
Wow.
And so you try to give everybody attention, because looks can be deceiving. And you also keep in mind that wasn't in the case of that kid, but I keep in mind that a lot of folks that will come up to me are artists because they are comfortable living a life by themselves. They sit in a room drawing, and yeah, maybe they'll interact with other people online or have their phones in their ear or whatever, but they aren't the world's greatest at social skills, social graces. So some of the great unwashed will come up literally unwashed and don't really know how to approach me. And I've said, don't be nervous. Nobody's going to bite you. Just show me the portfolio. Let's talk. Oh, well, I'm afraid you're not going to like me. This has nothing to do with you. I'm going to look at lines on pieces of paper, and or, as is more the case, lines that have been drawn on a tablet. This has nothing to do with you as a person. This is how you put down the lines. And that can change, that can improve, that can be learned from, So I try to put them at ease as best I can. Doesn't always work, but I make the attempt. It doesn't work for the person to come up with a load of pride or ego without anything to back it up. It's like the guy came to me at the end of a convention, throws down his portfolio and says, "I kick ass." And he shows me this stuff that's maybe one step above stick figures. It wasn't like Matt Fizzell trying to do these wonderful little cartoons. This was just bad drawing. And I still tried to say, okay, what you need to do to submit stuff to an editor is this. And I don't get 2 sentences out before he says, "You're not what I need." And he grabs up his portfolio and races away. He's never gotten work.
Yeah. Shocking.
And it's like, I feel bad for the guy, but someone led him astray somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Or somebody who says, I will give a number of examples that I've published in my blog, but they're worth for your audience to hear. I've just had so many cases where someone has come up with something that doesn't make sense, a portfolio that's not good enough, but they have, as I said earlier, been led astray. I had one guy bring me a portfolio, and I went through what didn't work, and you need to try harder at this. Your storytelling could be stronger. It wasn't terrible, but I probably saw, I kid you not, 300 guys that month that were about on that level. And there's no way to get that person to a great level without them putting the work in. So I start to tell him this stuff, and he says, "Well, you're wrong." I said, "How so?" "Well, a so-and-so editor at DC told me that he loved my work." I said, "I am happy to hear that. What book is he giving?" "Well, nothing yet, but he said he'd keep me in mind." And I said, "Congratulations." He said, "Thank you." I said, "No, congratulations. You just got the official editor brush off." And I said,
"Isn't that automated response?"
Yeah, I said, if he really loved your work, you'd be telling me what assignment you've turned in and been paid for. And here's your next assignment from him. But as it is, it was a brush off. Well, he disagreed. He left, gave me his business card. I think it was that night I ran into that editor at the bar. And I said, hey, this kid came by, and I'm telling him, and he said, who? And I show him the kid's business card. Just, oh, yeah, him. He comes to every convention, hits me up at every show. And it's clear he's got a chip on his shoulder. None of the samples ever really gets better. So I just started saying, yeah, it's great. Love it. I'll keep you in mind in case something comes up. That way, he doesn't hate me. He doesn't badmouth me. He keeps buying my comics. And I said, yeah, but you're making it hard for people like me. He doesn't believe that when I say he needs work. He said, you're the agent. You figure it out. So folks like that, I can't help. Or the ones who the work isn't professional level, but their friends who can't draw said, oh, this is great compared to them. Yeah. But I don't care what their friends say. I don't care what their mom says, or their dad, or anybody else. I do care what the editors say that are willing to pay that person to do the work.
Right.
And because I work with so many of the editors, I often know what they're looking for, sometimes down to specific styles on specific books, because we just had a conversation about it. So I'm able to guide artists in the right direction. Sometimes I will get something that isn't good enough to even guide them. It's like, just draw better, for heaven's sake. I don't. Is there a way to set this up that I can show pictures?
Yeah, there should be a share button at the bottom, I believe, of your panels. I don't have one as the admin, but I think.
All right, let me see if I can do it. Okay, share screen. I'm going to try this.
All right, yeah, I can add you to the screen.
Okay. All right, I'm going to bring this up, and there's a way to do this.
Should be.
All right, are you seeing this image?
Not yet. It should pop.
No.
Should pop up on like I have to add it to the stream, but I don't see it yet to add.
Huh. All right. I don't know what to do then. Choose what to share, entire screen. Let me try window.
All right.
Try that one. And
there it's coming. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now you got it.
Okay. Okay. See the one on the left?
Yeah.
That was a sample I got from somebody today. Oh, I've been working very hard at trying to become a professional artist for these past 7 years. I think I'm ready. Can you give me a little advice so I can get work? And I said to the guy on the left, well, you've got a problem with some proportions. You've got a problem with faces. I can't quite tell what's going on. I don't think you're ready. He said, well, can you show me the difference of what you mean? I said, well, look at the one on the right. If you can draw like the one on the right, I can get you work right now.
Yeah.
Well, the one on the right is Will Conrad, and he worked with
Will Conrad. Yeah, I know him.
Many years.
Sure.
He's very good. He's very good.
Oh, I love Will Conrad. Fantastic.
And it's a nice chap too. It's not only drawings. He's a nice character.
Yeah. Let's see if I can do one more.
I was wondering, David, if you're seeing an uptick of people coming to you with the internet now, because like I remember, I was an illustrator in like the early '90s, pre-internet, right? And it was difficult to find other like-minded artists. But man, as soon as the internet's out now, you go to like a DeviantArt and just see so much amazing stuff that like we just didn't have access to that as a young guy coming in.
Yeah, I get more submissions, sure, because
I was wondering to see a lot more.
Are you seeing that one?
Yeah, it's got to add it to the stream. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, same artist on the left, and so I showed him what was on the right. Same character,
right?
And do it this well, and you can get it. You don't expect everybody submitting to draw as well as Will Conrad, because Will's amazing. But
great.
Will wasn't Will Conrad now. when he started submitting.
Sure.
Will's first submissions to me, the pencils were not that good. I got him a couple of early penciling jobs that, thankfully, have never been in print. But when he came to me, he was already a phenomenal inker. He just understood this stuff. So right out of the box, I got him Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he was on that for years.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to pencil, so he just kept hammering and hammering at it till he got good enough. He just didn't give up.
Yeah, well, we get submissions too. Obviously, people that want to work with Livid, and I'm kind of the same way, man. We got to turn down a lot of people, and I'm always looking for stuff online too. And kind of how we got a relationship with like Ruggiero is you didn't necessarily have to come to us. Granted, he did. He was a fan early on, and I liked his ambition and things, and his passion was great. But if you're good enough, we're going to find you, right? If you're an indie artist and you're putting out some decent work, it's going to stand out and go, that's a guy. Like there's 2 or 3 right now that I would approach out of maybe, I'm not kidding, maybe the 500 that come to us wanting us to do something, right? Yeah. So it's and what you see a lot of too is just pinup work. People are sending you pinups. It's like, you're great on pinups, fantastic, right? But I need you to be able to tell the story in sequential. Show me sequential stuff, and they don't, right? So that's what I see all the time.
Yeah, you get the pinup artists who will say, okay, I want to job drawing comics.
Yeah.
Okay, then why don't you show me some comics? Well, I just did. No, those are pinups. Comics are sequential story pages. I need to see those. Well, hire me to do a story and I'll do it. It's like, okay, you're not going to magically get that skill because there's a lot to storytelling and doing it well. And sadly, many of today's guys coming in have a problem where they don't know anything beyond 5 years ago.
Right.
They don't know Jack Kirby, John Buscema, Gil Kane, Neil Adams, all the storytelling power and skill that they bring to it. And you show them somebody like Joe Bennett, who started with me in 1990, but 3 decades later still brings it to the table all the time with the level of power, the energy that's in there, the dramatic foreshortening, and
he keeps on improving. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So
on the show. Yeah.
But guys coming in now looked at his recent work on Hulk. Wow, I didn't know you could do powerful work like that. Look at any of the past half a century, fella. There have been so many great artists bringing powerful storytelling to it. You just haven't bothered to learn it.
Yeah, we see that a lot, and then the other thing that's lacking too, or maybe it's the opposite, maybe there's too much of it, is people that are hobbyists, right? They have to doodle and draw and but they don't have that passion, man. It's like it's not down in their bones, or like I particularly have to do something creative every day. Like some people got to go to the gym or jog. I'm like that with art, man. It's like it's literally in my marrow. Like I can't shut off that thing. And if you're hobbyist, that's cool, man. That's great. But I like Ruggiero. We brought him in because of that passion. You could just tell it was in his core. There's like a spark in there that you got to have too, on top of just having it in your hands. It's really got to be in your heart too. And we found that. So I see that a lot. Yeah.
And, it's interesting to see the artists like that. I'm going to use my daughter Jasmine as an example of this. She's 16. She's already working professionally. Wow. She's being hired by a website to design and color their characters, and it's terrific work. And every spare moment of her life is spent drawing. And it's not just doing the same thing over and over again. She's out there studying storytelling or techniques or line quality or whatever. At 3 years old, she was looking at Powerpuff Girls and no, I got to do 2 lines this way, and this line is thicker than the other. Yeah. Oh, yep. There's a story for you. Powerpuff Girls. My daughter's at like 3 years old, laying on the floor. Mike Diodato, one of the most amazing artists ever in the business. Her Uncle Deo, is sitting next to her, drawing Powerpuff Girls with her as they're watching the show together. And she looks over and says, "No, Uncle Dale, you have to put 2 lines here like this." And Dale chuckled, put the second line. "Oh, Uncle Dale, that's good. You're a natural."
Oh, sure she is.
So,
It's great to have someone in your house, like to reinforce your talents. Yeah, I know you are acquainted to Mike Deodato.
of course, that's
And
how he became godfather to my daughter.
yeah,
And
really?
I
didn't know that.
She has 2 godfathers, Mike Deodato and Will Conrad.
Whoa, that's fantastic.
They were both in her baptism.
Yeah.
Got it.
I have known them both for decades. Deodato was either the second or the third artist from Brazil that we hired. I think the first one was Joe Bennett. Don't remember who the second one was. Deodato was probably the third, and he did a ton of work for me then. And now there's a guy that is amazing every step of the way. When he started in the business, he was doing this very, very well done but stiff photo referenced style, and that worked all through working for me in Innovation on Lost in Space and Quantum Leap, and the painted airbrush work he did on Beauty and the Beast. I took him and his stuff to New York. Marvel turned him down.
Wow.
DC turned him down. Neil Adams at Continuity turned him down. Neil told me, Deodato is a great artist, but he'll never be a superhero artist. So we went away from that meeting, and working through Halcyon as translator, Deo asked me, okay, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? So we went to Forbidden Planet in New York, and we picked up a bunch of comics. I think it was the whatever the She-Bat comic was, the Continuity was publishing, and some of the Image books, and I handed him those. We went back to the hotel, and he starts laughing, and I said, what's he saying? What's he saying? And Hilcio translated that he said, I can do this. Why didn't they tell me? So he went back and he did a couple of sample pages of my own project at Innovation, Hero Alliance. And it was fantastic. He didn't know that the pages were computer colored. So he did the line art and then did full airbrushed originals that looked like the image type coloring. And I sent those to Continuity, and Neil Adams said, I was wrong. He's hired. So he did the work of Continuity, and then I got him some Miracle Man Triumphant, which unfortunately never came out. And then the opportunity came up for him to try out for Wonder Woman, and he used the same trick. He did the airbrush originals, and it was 2 pages of Wonder Woman kicking the snot out of Superman. And Paul Kupperberg said, "You're hired." And so he did 1 issue of pencils. Then they hired him for a year, and boom, his career went off like that. And he adapted into what Marvel and DC needed. As people wanted the really imagey, Mark Silvestri stretched out figures, they adapted to that. When that style began to be less interesting to the fans and editors, on one of my trips down to Brazil, I was at his house and we were talking about how to adapt. And we hit upon go back to the realistic, more reference style, but instead of building your pages around the reference, do your layouts with all this action and power that you're doing, and then shoot new reference to match the layouts you've done. So he was doing these really powerful foreshortened references and then pasting the hand bigger when he was doing this and all that. And it worked. And that set Deodato on his second, even much longer career at Marvel. And it's just been fascinating to watch him continue to grow and adapt and use new tricks and techniques. The guy never stops learning, so he's never bored.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of thing so many artists are missing now. They reach a certain level of craft that's good enough to get work at, Company C. And then they wonder, well, I'm making $85 a page at Company C. I want to work for Company A and make, $320 a page or $400 a page or whatever. But they haven't gone to the next level of being good enough to be in that A-list tier where those editors are willing to hire them and bring them on. So it's just mounting frustration in the artist at not getting the better jobs. But although they might have 5 or 8 or 10 years experience, they really have 1 year's experience 10 times because they haven't learned and improved over that time.
Right.
So,
do you find
that's a big thing.
Do you find a lot of artists that you're working with, obviously they have their own style. Are they hung up on trying to push their style, or do you find them some are more able to, like your point earlier, like you were talking about, nerfing it to what's popular right now? Are they like, no, man, like this is my vision?
All right. Well, here's the thing about style that I don't hear a lot of people say. And Neil Adams told me this. He said, an artist's natural style is everything he does wrong. Think about it. If they did it right, it would look like a photograph.
Right.
So it's their interpretations of reality that determine their style. How they render hair, how they define light sources, how they put in the thicks and thins to get a sense of depth in their panel, or to show the curve of a shoulder, or how they put a rendering here. I've seen artists do a rendering here. It looks like a comb is laying there, but that's their technique from going to a black and feathering out. So different artists come by that naturally, and some can't really vary from it. So their style is what they're locked into.
Right.
Other artists are more savvy in a way. They can look at other artists that are successful in the business and kind of break that code. Not just the surface elements, but, I understand why he's doing that way. So they don't just copy the most obvious surface stuff. They get into the thinking process and bring that into their own stuff.
That reminds me of the Daredevil made by Bill Sienkiewicz.
Mm-hmm.
It was an outrage all around the world, and people learned how to love that style, but he broke all the codes. And that was something, it was forbidden. It wasn't a kind of unwritten law at the time. And the law would tell us just to do what has been done. You have to make your art look as someone who was already being successful at the time. John Buscema, Frank Miller, or whatever. You would have to fit in that kind of style to make it a career back then in the 90s.
Of course.
And just to complete my question, Bill Sienkiewicz, he didn't give a shit about that. He made his own stuff, and then he was forgotten. He was put in the back burner for some time. Then in the new century, the best artists were the ones that just broke the code. And like you lived that. And how can you explain that kind of phenomenon?
Okay, basically there's a couple of ways that people get into the business and build from there. Let me explain it like this. If you remember when Bill Sienkiewicz started, he was doing a decent Neil Adams riff. Remember his Moon Knight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looked like Batman, so that's what he was doing. And it was a combination of Bill Sienkiewicz doing some amazingly different things and an editor willing to pay him to do those different things. Because you can be great and terrific and wonderful, but if you can't find an editor that understands your vision and is willing to give it a chance, then it's real tough to get that stuff into print at that publisher. So, you've got to do it yourself these days. Fortunately, there are people doing Kickstarters and Indiegogos that are going to get out there, get noticed, get popular, and then the big guys will hire them. But I have, across the decades, found that there's two ways that people get in. They either come in and are so wonderful in their own way that the editor says, yeah, I got to hire that guy. Or they do a pretty good imitation of somebody else who's very popular. And then once they're in, they'll eventually go off into their own direction. Adam Hughes came in with his wonderful, clean style and the gorgeous gals and so forth. Didn't do sequentials anywhere near long enough, but it was wonderful work. And then you had Terry Dodson come in, and Terry Dodson started out kind of doing what Adam Hughes was doing. And then Terry kind of went into his own way. It's still this beautiful, open, clean style, but then he started doing the faces very differently from what Adam Hughes did and settled into his own look, which I think is phenomenal. And so think about this stuff. These guys that come in duplicating another artist's style and are doing it well enough to get hired. You saw how that happened all through the 90s, especially.
Right. Yeah.
But look at it. You had all these guys that came in imitating Jim Lee. 20, 30, 40 guys, many of them working for Image, and then some working for DC, a lot of them working for Marvel. And then when the dust settled all these years later, who's left? Jim Lee. You had all the guys from the 70s that were all the way into the 80s who were imitating Neil Adams. Who's left after all this time? Neil Adams. So if you come in as the guy who sets the style that everybody wants to copy, then you can be in this for life.
It's like you can only have one Led Zeppelin. No matter how many Black Crows are out there, Greta Van Fleet, Led Zeppelin is Led Zeppelin. In comics, might be the same kind of law that applies. Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even when you had all these guys that were trying to draw like Jack Kirby, and none of them did a fantastic job, but the ones that learned the thinking behind it, all the power of the storytelling, and if any of them could plot as well as Kirby could, then that meant something. But too many people came in thinking draw like Kirby and thought that meant boxy knees and square fingers. But that was just surface stuff. The ones who go deeper and understand the thinking under it are the ones who tend to be successful.
I think maybe I'm wrong in my personal opinion, but the artists, to a degree, have to be willing to take a little bit of a risk. Who, in your opinion, maybe started out, conforming, but eventually became a big rebel, took a risk and hit it. Is there anyone that stands out, maybe that you've represented or that you follow or read that has that type of lineage and tenure behind them?
Oh, there have been a number, but it hasn't been like a Bill Sienkiewicz kind of thing.
Right.
What I have found across the decades is a lot of artists who have been quite successful in the business, and I consider the business not just Marvel and DC. I think of the whole children's book market and all that, because a lot of that is bigger than the comics market.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I had a guy, Fabio Laguna, out of Brazil. Wonderful,
I know him, yeah.
amazing artist,
Right.
terrific guy. Fabio came in the 90s when Image and Marvel would basically hire any warm body that could kind of draw in an Image style. And there were whole websites devoted to Fabio Laguna's swipes, at one point decades ago, where it's kind of like what people do with Greg Land's stuff these days. Here's where he's used the same image 40 times. But this was Fabio going through the learning process of trying to draw superheroes and realizing that wasn't where his heart was. So on one of my trips down to Brazil, I think it was 2001, 2002, Fabio's English wasn't very strong. My Portuguese is non-existent. And he took me aside and said, "Dave, I want to show you something. Is there any market for this?" And he very shyly pulls from his portfolio these amazing Scooby-Doo pages. They were absolutely on model, but they were like the best version of Scooby-Doo you could hope for, because all the energy in the storytelling, the body language, the gesture, expression was all of them on model, but great. And he pulls out this Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge stuff. And I said, "You can do this? Why didn't you show me this 8 years ago?" He said, "Well, I didn't think you could make money at this. I'd been told that wouldn't work." I said, "Well, you can't make money at it if you're not great. These are great." So I went out, got him some Scooby-Doo immediately, and then we jumped into doing children's books for Disney, for DreamWorks, that sort of stuff. And I don't think he's ever had to look back. So he found his passion in that he could do any type of anything with a model sheet, nail it, and do the best version of it. And so that's a success story where they didn't break out into their own thing; they broke out into their own things of
right.
Being able to master those styles.
Yeah, I think passion plays a huge role in that. And if you're drawing something you're not into, it's going to make a lifeless work of art. Like I have a background in oil painting, and man, if you're not bringing emotion and energy to every stroke you're putting on that canvas, it's going to create a really lifeless, dull, boring painting too, right? So same thing if he's into drawing Scooby-Doo versus superhero work and loves Scooby-Doo and that type of cartoon genre more, it's going to emulate in his work more. You're going to see that no matter what you're into.
Somebody brought me a portfolio at the last convention I attended, and for some reason they decided to do all their art in a sketchbook, not large size, but it was like 9x12. And in front of the sketchbook said, "All Technique Sketchbook," pencils, watercolor, whatever. I open it. Man, was that title accurate. It was All Technique. Here was a bunch of stuff where they were trying to imitate, classic John Byrne. And then here was some other stuff that was, 80s Mike Zeck or, whatever it was. Not only wasn't there anything original, the person in studying their work hadn't learned anything valuable about storytelling. So the panel layouts, the level of characters living and breathing within their panels was just so rudimentary. It was kind of sad. And I said, "How long have you been doing this?" "Oh, I've been working at this for about 15 years. The guy was in his 40s. When you see something like that, you wonder, the guy's got some ability, but there's no passion there. And there's no serious desire to learn it. And so that hurts. Artists who come into this expecting something magically to happen really confuse me in a way. By magically happen, I mean that the ones that will tell me, give me a chance, pay me to do this book and it will be great. Totally unlike the samples they're using to try to get the assignment. It doesn't quite make sense. I had a guy back when I did Motor City Comic Con for many years. He would come up to me at every Motor City show, and he'd show me stuff, and I'd look through 10 or 12 pages, and there was something in them that had possibility. There was no single page that I would have said, yes, this is it. But you could see there was some skill. Here was a panel with a nice face. Here was a body with good gestures, but he couldn't put it all together. So I would spend some time with him and say, do this, do this, do this. And then I'd see him 6 months later at the next Motor City show, and the pages were maybe marginally better. But they never got really good. And then I went to one show, he wasn't there. So he missed the show. He attended the next one, and instead of the 10 or 12 pages, he had like 4 with him. And I thought, okay, the last time I saw you, I told you, if you work at this, you're 6 months to a year from being ready. What do you got? And he opens his portfolio, and my heart sank.
Oh.
There was no improvement over those
Wow.
from a year ago. And I stopped and said, let me ask you, since I saw you last year, how many pages have you drawn? And he said, oh, well, I got married, I did this. And I wasn't asking for his life story, but he starts telling me all this stuff. And he says, so then last week I looked at the guest list, realized you were going to be here. So I did up these pages to show you. So that was your way of telling me that these 4 pages are the only things that you have drawn in the past year. He said, well, yeah. And how about every 6 months before that when you were showing me stuff? Well, yeah, I would do up the pages right before the convention so they'd be fresh. But you weren't working all that time? No. When I said 6 months to a year, I mean you doing a page a day, every day for 6 months to a year, learning storytelling, learning how to finesse drawing hair, learning, improving on perspective and all these other things. So I wasn't expecting it would be 10 pages or 6 pages later. I was expecting to see work 300 pages later. Right. I said, oh my God, that's a lot of work. I never come again.
Yeah, you can absolutely tell people that do something every day versus people, like to your point, that don't do stuff very often. You see that in painting, you see it in drawing, and all of those types of things. And earlier on, like you mentioned, people expecting something magical to happen. It's like, this is work, guys. Like, I mean, David could tell, Rogero could tell, like, we're up till 2 a.m. doing this, endlessly, right? It's real work. It's not just some blessing that you get and the sky's open and you're bestowed with riches and fame and fortune. It's like, no.
If there's a way, let me know.
Right? This is a lot of failure and time and crumpled up papers in the trash can and frustration.
Yeah.
Walks and going for a drive.
Also, we have to be willing to take in the hits.
Yeah.
You know, like take the hit. If you tell anything about my art which you think is wrong, you're helping me. You know, because I already have my mom. She can, she can tell me how good I am, but I don't need that. We don't really need that. And we need to get hits. We need to have bad criticism, not only good ones.
Yeah.
Even bad. If somebody hates you, that guy would rather be honest with you than your neighbor or your friend.
Oh yeah.
And
sometimes I wonder just how sensitive people have gotten. I got one person sent me a portfolio wanting to know if Glass House would be willing to rep them, and I said, I don't think it's quite there yet. I think you need to do this, and this, and then I would love to take you on. I didn't ask you for any advice. I wanted to know if you would take us on. It's like, oh my God, if he's that touchy about me giving him the direction so that I can do what he wants and bring him aboard, can you imagine?
Shrink.
Can you imagine his response when he gets the editorial direction of what to change? If he actually got an assignment, it's like, dear Lord. There was another fellow that submitted me stuff, and it's like, all right, you're not ready for prime time yet. It's just I can't really sell this to the clients that we're selling to, and it was fairly general stuff. Your storytelling needs to be a bit stronger. You really ought to try more foreshortening. Look at some of the classic guys, Gil Kane and so on and so forth. Here's a few examples of what I'm talking to. And the guy started posting on social media, oh, David Campiti gave me the most evil, horrible review I've ever had in my life. He's a terrible human being. What? I was giving him direction so he can be better, so that the next samples that he sends me, I can say, yes, let me get you work, please. So some of the responses are far beyond what you'd expect when you kind of think a thank you, I will work on that and send you the revisions would be the answer that you get.
Yeah, there's a level of professionalism that goes with that too. And when I was an oil painter starting out as a young artist, for whatever reason, everybody came to me wanting to do portraits. And I'm very literal. So if you have a big nose, you're going to have a big nose, right? But then they'll want to say, hey, my nose isn't that big. And when I was a young guy, I'd be like, oh, well, shit, it's accurate to the photo. And I measured everything and it's laid out. And then as I've gotten more mature as an artist, I go, you know what? They're paying if they want a smaller nose. Fine, we'll do a smaller nose. But I learned that you're going to do 2 or 3 edits on a portrait because everybody sees themselves a little bit different than how they actually look, right? So it's not personal, but you got to have that level of professionalism. It's not a dig on your skill. It's not a dig on what you're doing. It's just what they want. And you got to be able to set that ego aside and be like, well, fuck it. They're the ones paying for it. I don't care. I'm just going to.
Well, it's not only that. When it comes to portraits, a lot of people don't realize the person, if the person's asking for a portrait themselves, the actual person is the only person in the world who has never seen himself or herself. They see the mirror image
of
themselves, which is why they always think they look bad in photos, because it never matches the mirror image.
That's the same with the art. Like, it's very hard for an artist, to have an accurate and criticism of his own work.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I have a personal story when I was a kid and I was drawing superheroes, and I would bring them to my friends. All of them would love it, but there came a girl, and she was the nasty one in the classroom. She came to me and said, "The legs is as wide as the whole body. This is bad." And I hated her for one day. And then I looked again and said, yeah, she was right. And I hate her for being right. She is my best friend now because she could give me the answer that I needed to improve at the time. And, you know, like sometimes it's very hard to have the right picture of yourself. We always think that either way, we are prettier or we are uglier. And we are wrong. We are wrong in both measures. Sometimes we need someone else, someone outside ourselves, to have a better, a more accurate view of what you're doing or what you're making. Because if you want to be someone in every aspect of life, you have to be able to understand that you're not your ego. You have to put your ego aside if you want to be a better person, a better artist, or a better professional in any
Sure,
area.
sure. Artists are often their own worst enemies, in the sense that they'll sometimes sabotage themselves with editors, or they will you know, fight it rather than try to make the revisions that would improve their work. Some will say, you know, well, that's not my vision, and they're surprised when the editor says, well, it's not my vision to pay you for this. So,
Yeah.
so it's tough going for people sometimes. Now, you know, sometimes that's legitimate. I have a terrific artist that's in the Philippines that he does wonderful work. But if you ask him to fix a small something, that hand isn't right, the nose is too big, he can never fix it right. It's easier for him to completely redraw the face than it is to make the little fix, because he can't see what's wrong that requires the little fix. So he'll just completely redo it, say, is this better? And usually he nails it because he's nailed it all the rest of the book. But, you know, that's really for him his one weakness. And it means doing a little more work than I'd like to see him do, but he gets it right in the end.
Yeah, that's great for me. If you have someone who is willing to put so much work just to
Oh yeah,
fix
you
a
know,
nose,
well,
that's
yeah. Well,
commitment.
most of the artists that I work with, I'm very fortunate. I have close to 200 artists on my roster.
Wow.
Wow.
And some of these guys I have worked with for decades. You know, once in a while, somebody will go away, try another agency, come back, or try to do it on their own and come back. That's fine. But I get to work with some pretty terrific people. I also have folks that, if you go down our roster, you'll see, you know, tons of pencilers, inkers, letterers, colorists on my team. But I
There are
also
some
have
big names there.
groups that aren't on the roster that, believe it or not, are doing probably half the work or more than half the work that my company does each month. Because we get these jobs from, I mentioned before we came on that we get these jobs from Simon and Schuster or Abdo or Capstone that often require a lot of work in a very small amount of time. Since you draw, imagine a client coming to you and saying, hey, I want to hire you for a graphic novel. Yes, I need artwork, I need lettering, I need coloring, I need final production into print-ready PDFs. And you say, great, wonderful. And you maybe agree on the money. Oh, by the way, the schedule, I need 6 192-page books done in the next year. And you get out your calculator, 192 times 6 equals, wait, you want me to do 1,152 pages in a year? And I said, why? Is that a problem? So,
Oh no.
yeah. So Simon and Schuster was trying to do that with artists. They were going to individual artists and saying, well, can you pencil that much? Can you find an inker who can do that much? Can you have a colorist do that? And it kept coming back, no. So fortunately, word of mouth still works in this business, for good as well as for ill. And the art director at DreamWorks recommended us to the art director at Simon and Schuster. And they came to us with, well, we have 3 books that need, 3 different titles that need 6 books done in a year. Can you do it? Okay, we can, because we have teams in Brazil and teams in Italy that can set up to do those. And there's stuff like this, Pup Detectives.
I can go full screen. One second. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Pup Detectives. And it's simpler stuff. It's like this.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still doing tons and tons. There's Dragon Kingdom.
Nice.
Wow.
And
they're all very thick.
Yeah. So it looks like this. I'm trying to get it where you can see it on the screen.
Yeah.
And then we do hardcover little books like this. But these are all done on very rapid schedules. So they need to be artists that can be able to work as a team and turn stuff around very quickly. So, we are doing, I think for 2021 already, and the year's not over yet, we've done well over 4,000 pages of artwork for Simon and Schuster. We've done hundreds of pages of artwork for some of these other book publisher clients.
This is fantastic. It's unbelievable, because like the amount of people that you have to manage to accomplish that feat.
Yeah.
I can just imagine that you're very busy and you have a kind of managerial work on all that. You are the guy who connects the dots.
Yeah, well, we have a good structure set up. So MJ in Brazil and Salvador DeMarco in Italy are the ones who oversee the day-to-day to make sure these books get done. And we have systems set up now. So we're doing like Goddess Girls, Heroes in Training, Pup Detective. Let's see, what's the other ones? Dragon Kingdom, Arcade World, Legends of Horsa, and I know there's a couple others. It's at least 8 different books for Simon and Schuster, and page counts for a volume of 6 being anywhere from 850 to 1,150 pages.
Wow.
So that requires artists that are willing to work as a team, who aren't going to give anybody grief, are going to meet their deadlines, and are willing to do this work on a consistent basis. So the ones that can do this stuff, great, fantastic. But a lot of these fellows, guys and gals that are a problem, they don't get to be part of this. And some of these folks working as teams on these books, some of the individuals specialize. So this one does the layouts. This one does does all the faces, and so on and so forth. And they get to the point where they're so good that They've brought in somebody else, trained them, and then they're off doing their own thing, getting their own project on a much more realistic schedule. So they're working their way up. So they're doing it right. And it's kind of like, decades ago, there were a lot of assistants that got to work with the star artists, or all those artists who got to work with Neil Adams at continuity, or Wally Wood working with Dan Adkins and Ralph Reese and Larry Hama, all these other folks that I think worked with him. I don't see that happening much anymore.
Yeah. I think it's a common mistake too, especially like a lot of indie people make, is trying to be all things for the book, right? And I've fallen in that trap. And as you get older, you start to get a little wiser. Like, yeah, we should hire out the lettering. Yeah, we should hire out a colorist. Like, man, it's a ton of work, So you just can turn out even a better product if people that just do that stuff. It's like,
oh yeah, and somebody can be a good letterer, but if for a few bucks you can hire a great letterer that makes your stuff better than it could have been, then it's worth those few bucks.
Right.
And if you letter yourself, you might learn something from that other guy that worked your books. Like, oh, they did a better job than I could do myself. Let me study what they did.
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. Like we're going to have the first letterer for the Deadball 1, and I did the all the lettering stuff, but I told them beforehand I do it, but I am not specialized in that. And John said, "Oh, it's cheap. Let's do it. Let's hire someone to do it." And I'm looking forward to seeing it because, of course, it's. I believe in specialization. If you're good at this, keep on doing this. And lettering is not as easy as people would imagine. It isn't, because you can just you can wreck the story if you don't have those bubbles right. If you have those letters right, like you can. All right.
People gotta get this.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Every colorist that this was some years ago, but every colorist that joined Glasshouse, I would buy off Amazon and send them a copy of the DC Guide to Coloring and Lettering, and because there was so much to learn from the coloring aspects of that book. And now I'm making sure my letterers all get this. Because, as I said earlier, never stop learning.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, even if you only pick up 3 or 4 tips out of the book, that's 3 or 4 things that you didn't know before that you know now that you can incorporate into your work.
I think we all had Jack Kirby's How to Draw Superheroes the Marvel Way. Like everybody had that. It was like a staple.
Oh, the John Buscema thing.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
I got that. I got that. I love that guy. He's the best.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah. And David, like, how do you see yourself in the business? Because you were creative. I know you write stuff, but what do you think you are most fit doing? Is this kind of connecting the dots, making things happen? What are your goals?
My goal is to do more animation, honestly.
Already.
Let me tell you a little bit about that. For folks who aren't aware, Glasshouse also has an animation studio. Go to ghsanimation.com. Our teams have worked on little bits of some of the big movies. One of the Despicable Me's and Rio and Horton Hears a Who and films like that. We've also done all of smaller movies for Netflix and for Hulu. Nico, The Journey to Magica, and El Americano. One of our designers worked on the new HBO Looney Tunes and on the new Space Jam movie. And
is there a new one?
The Space Jam came out just a few months ago.
I'm
LeBron,
late here.
LeBron James one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I saw the first one.
Yeah. So we've done quite a bit of it, and we're a couple of weeks away from starting a TV cartoon that's going to come out next Christmas.
oh, nice.
We do quite a bit of that, and there are some months when the animation is half our business. There are months where we're doing very little of it, and children's books are half our business. So it varies. When you ask where I see myself, I don't settle on just one thing. So that after being in the business almost 40 years, I'm not bored. During the pandemic, for example, we had all this work coming in from Simon and Schuster, and they said, "Oh, we're looking for a writer to write Goddess Girls." And I said, "Oh, I can find you somebody. We have a few writers that I can call." And the art director said, "I remember liking your Hero Alliance. Would you be interested in writing?" I said, "Well, let me see what it is." And I checked it out. So, "Oh yeah, I can write this. This is the kind of stuff I was reading to my daughter Jasmine when she was little." So I did them a several page sample. They said, "Great, wonderful." And I ended up writing 1,500 pages of graphic novels for Simon and Schuster. So I ended up doing 6 heroes in training books, 4 Goddess Girls. And when we're set to roll back into it, I think I have a couple more Goddess Girls to do. And I also did a series of 6 hardcover books of graphic novels about Greek mythology for Abdo Publishing, which goes into the school market.
Yeah,
So,
but the reason why I'm asking that is that from my point of view, like you were the guy who made possible for people who would never break into the business to realize their dreams, and like you were kind of conduit for that. And in my opinion, this alone is just fantastic because so many guys, like we now know, especially the Brazilian guys, some of them are my friends, and they have always mentioned you, and I'm having the pleasure to talking to you now. But those guys, they came to they over and over again say, like I had an agent, I had someone who made the connections. This is so important, and that alone is big. But like you're not only doing that, like you're doing your creative stuff. Like you were talking to companies, and I think, my God, how many hours does you have every day? Because we only have 24.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot.
I've spent way too much time at this computer following up with artists. And, sometimes have been easier than others. My first several years, I was the only guy doing this. And then other so-called agents kept popping up all through Brazil, but they weren't doing what I was doing. I spend a lot of time working with artists, training them, trying to get them better, getting them to understand storytelling, in a lot of cases, teaching them how to deal with editors better, so they don't come in with a chip on their shoulder, and they understand that revisions are part of the business, and understanding deadline, all this stuff. But these other agents would come in, or would-be agents, and they try to steal these guys away. And some would go. It's like, "Oh, well, I can get I have another agent offering me work for a smaller percentage." It's like, Okay, good luck, enjoy. And some would come back, and other ones would take their place. And the fact that I've had some guys with me for since I started is kind of amazing. So I'm happy to have that. Happy to keep working with things. The truth of the matter is, over the years, I've given so much free time to artists that never joined Glass House. Just people sending me stuff. I get stuff from people working with another agent. Dave, can I get your opinion on this? Why are you sending this to me? Here, you're with these guys. Oh, well, they don't give me feedback. Sure. And I'll give them feedback. And so I'm trying to do less of that now. Over the past year, I've hated doing this, but I've gone from doing all these individual reviews to, if somebody just isn't there, just doing one line. Thanks for showing me your work, but it's not at a level I can sell to my clients. And then they invariably write back, well, can you tell me how to improve? And, you want to yell at the screen, draw better, but what I'll tend to do is send them an example or two and then say, just read my blog. DavidCampiti.com has hundreds of posts about breaking in and how to improve and what artists do wrong and what artists do right, and sample plots and scripts. So there's so much information there that'll help people.
Yeah, Glass House has a big deal of information about that. Like, I've been reading that as well. But that's something. Can you spot a difference between this generation, like a 20s, early 30s? Can you see a difference between them and those guys back then when you started?
Yes, the guys now. Here's the best way to describe it. If you've ever seen, I don't know how old you fellows are, but
I'm old.
I'm almost as old.
If you ever got to see the old TV crappy superhero stuff, 60s, 70s, so forth, you look at, remember the terrible Captain America movie made for TV, or the awful Doctor Strange movie, or the cringeworthy Spider-Man TV show.
I love that.
But it was all so low budget, the most basic camera angles, no energy, just all people standing around talking. And then you look at the Marvel movies now, and it's like the best of the comics, the powerful in-your-face and dramatic angles and everything that growing up we'd hoped a comic book movie could be. All right. The artists today trying to break in are drawing it the equivalent of those bad 1970s, Spider-Man TV show and Captain America. They never learned the powerful storytelling. They never learned the excitement that they could put in it. So the pages mostly look to me like somebody photographed a stage play. Everybody's in medium shots. If they give you a close-up, it's this. It's not John Buscema's doing this bit. So you don't get the power, the emotion that was there. What you get is a lot of people drawing on a Wacom Cintiq or whatever they're drawing it on, using Google SketchUp for their backgrounds, and I can use
3D models.
Yeah, they can do that, and so all the life is gone from it. And then I mentioned Joe Bennett earlier. He still draws everything on, bristle board, and all the construction lines are there and so forth. And he puts all the power and drama in it. There's so much you can learn from a Joe Bennett page. There's 50 issues of the Hulk he did. Just astounding stuff. And you look at a lot of these artists that are sending in stuff. It's like, okay, first thing, I shouldn't be able to tell at first glance that you drew this on a Cintiq. But everything is so clean, so perfect. There's no trash. There's no grime. There's no rust on the cars. There's no age on the buildings. Everything is so immaculate. Nobody lives there. There's no life to it. They don't even know, put some stuff going on tops of the New York buildings, put flags waving in the breeze, put birds flying in the air, have smoke coming up from the smokestacks. Don't make it pristine. Those should be real buildings that people have lived in for 100, 150 years or whatever, not shoeboxes with windows. We get far too much of that.
But David, sorry to interrupt, but do you not think that this can be due to the tight deadlines that artists get?
No. Because I'm talking about samples that people were sending me to.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, yeah. All right, I understand.
And people that are getting work at the lower tier companies.
Because I sense that because sometimes when I get a DC book, depending on the artist, and the story is very fast paced, like you get like every second week, the quality of art is not the same. As when you get an European book, you look at it, you open that and say, my God, that cannot possibly be a page a day. And sometimes some artists in the United States.
We do some of the European books, and okay, are you guys comfortable with 2 pages a week? Yeah, we're good. Yeah. How do I say this? This may upset a couple of people, but I'm sorry if it does. There are some artists that get work at, whether they're doing on paper or digital, doesn't matter. That's a different subject from what I was just talking about, where they're not putting the energy into it, and they're using those tools as crutches, not tools.
Yeah,
that's one problem. The other problem artists are having, whether they're drawing on paper or digitally, is they will get jobs at some of these second and third tier companies that don't pay especially well, but they were good enough to get work there. And they'll do a year's worth of work there. And the company comes along and maybe offers no raise or $5 a page raise. And, well, haven't gotten any other offers. All right, I'll do another year with you guys. Before they know it, they've done 3, 4, 5, 6 years of work with one of these smaller publishers at the same under $100 a page rates. And they're suffering for it because they really can barely live on that kind of money. Especially and they're saying, why can't I get work at Marvel or DC? Well, when are you going to start doing Marvel or DC level work? I earlier used the phrase, they don't have 10 years experience. They have 1 year's experience 10 times. They reach a certain level of efficiency where the storytelling is good enough. The sense of finish is okay enough that the publisher gets the pages, doesn't have much to comment. It's met the deadline. Great, let's go to press. but it's not, oh my God, these pages are phenomenal. So the artist never gets better. They sort of fall into that rut of B or C level work, but ultimately their frustration is they're not getting the A-list jobs because they simply aren't delivering the A-list work. And some of the ones who eventually try, they pull out of that rut of what they got into, but then they found, oh, well, my level of work expanded to fill the time that I allowed. It was work that when they started, maybe they did it in 4 hours or 5 hours. And then they got complacent with them and it fills a whole day. So they found if they really wanted to do excellent work, oh my God, now it's taking 2 or 2.5 days to do a Marvel or DC level page. And okay, I'm going to be paid more, but I'm not being paid any more when you consider the number of hours. So, okay, it's taking me 22 hours to do a page now, and I'm being paid more, but I'm being paid 22 hours worth of work. Yeah. So they just slide right back into just doing the work for the smaller company. They're resigned to it. I hate seeing that, but I've witnessed it happening so many times. And that's one of my failings. I don't know how to inspire artists out of it if they've fallen into the rut of doing just this mediocre level of work that's good enough to get published, but not great enough to be published by the top guys for the top money.
Yeah, but do you think that the money is a kind of ill motivation for an artist? Like if you think of making money, like you really want to do comics, or you want to do comics because this is something that you would do even if it's for free?
Yeah, it's nice to think about comics and passion. Many artists think about comics and passion. I have yet to find how passion pays the mortgage each month. I have a nice house. I have a nice car. All that stuff. I have a nice wife, and life costs money. And if you're working for a small company and you're making $2,000 a month and you're working full time at it, 24 grand a year is what, minimum wage? I don't even know. I'm not doing the arithmetic right now, but
About that.
Yeah, you can do the arithmetic and tell me. But
31, 15 an hour. 31 too, 15 an hour.
Okay. So it's rough. So I still get people writing me, I need an artist for this project. It's 22 pages and I need art, letters, and coloring. My budget's $1,500. Right? Really? So each of these pages is going to run about 2 days. That's about 16 hours, 16, 30, 40. I do the arithmetic. That's less than minimum wage. Would you work for less than minimum wage? No, of course not. So this guy who has a specialized talent, something you can't do, you want to pay him less than minimum wage. Well, it's all I can afford. Well, your business model sucks.
Maybe they can give a back end deal or something. I don't know if you work with any of that, but that was something we were thinking about. Even as an artist, take less of a page rate, but you get a back end deal in perpetuity on the IP. But that's something we've talked about in the past too.
You know what? I've done several deals of my own that included a back end deal. I've done back end deals on some stuff dating as far back as the 80s. I'm still waiting to see my first dollar on those.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's the reality of the back end deals. If you're going to come in to do a back end deal with a publisher, The first question an artist asks or should ask is, what is your structure for overseas reprints, and how well have you been doing it the past couple of years, so that I can get an honest assessment of what the back end is going to actually be once you're selling reprints. And truthfully, it comes out a lot of folks don't have much to offer along those lines.
Right.
And it's a shame, because there should be a pretty strong international market out there.
Sure.
But
right.
it's getting to it. I used to know an old lady in New York that worked for Byron Price that made those deals for people. But she retired some years ago, unfortunately, so I'm not able to help people do that anymore. I used to send them in her direction.
Yeah, you see that more in the music industry. It's a pretty popular thing on the back end deal. At least it used to be. I don't know what it is anymore, but that was a big deal. Hey, we've hit the 90-minute mark. Just wanted to check in with you, let you know that we're there.
We can do a few more minutes, but what else comes to mind?
What do you got? You guys got everything.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Like when you see a new applicant, what do you expect? I mean, what do you expect to see? What would stand out? So you would say, all right, this is what I'm looking for.
All right. I'm going to get real basic with you. I expect that the artist is able to spend a few minutes, at least, researching who he's going to send stuff to. Don't send porn to a children's book publisher. If a publisher is doing 90% superhero stuff, maybe at least something in your portfolio ought to show you can do a superhero thing. Yeah, real basic things like that. If you're sending me artwork where the proportions are wrong, it's like, really? You couldn't spend a minute picking up a comic book and measuring so that you know what the proportions are? I got something today that pages were almost square. And I said, well, what's this for? Was this for like one of the old school 12-inch record albums that you open up and there's a comic inside? No, it's for a comic book. Why did you draw it square? Well, what proportion should I have drawn it? You don't know? The information's out there. There is a thing called Google. It'll take a minute or two. That information is all on my website or in my blog too. So if people are submitting stuff, I really don't like hearing excuses rather than answers. If I come back to someone with questions, why did you do this that way? Oh, well, and they give me some story about what went wrong in their life. Or they give me, that's an old page. Well, why did you do it wrong when it was an old page? Yeah. So I will ask questions because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing, and they had a very legitimate reason for doing this thing that I think isn't working. But usually I'll get excuses. A guy not that long ago was showing me a bunch of stuff at one of the shows. This was right before the pandemic. And every page I had a question, and he had some excuse for it. So I looked up at him and I said, so what you're telling me is nothing in this portfolio is representative of what you can really do? He said, that's right. I handed him back the portfolio and said, next. So don't show me stuff if it's not representative of what you do now. Don't send me. You mentioned ArtStation, DeviantArt, whatever earlier. I hate those. My God, I hate those.
I do hate those because that makes me feel bad.
If somebody sends me, says they want me to review their portfolio, and they send me their DeviantArt account, I know it's not going to work, because most artists' Deviant accounts are like this dump of all their sketches and old pieces and unfinished things, and I'll come out of it and say, no, send me a PDF with all your contact information and if you've been published, your credits, whatever, on the first page. Send me a PDF of your absolutely representative sequentials and covers so that there's no excuse. Show me exactly what you think I should be reviewing. Because my job is not to go through 400 pieces on your Deviant account. It's to look through 5 or 8 or 10 pieces that you're sending me that you want a specific review of. And if I can't tell that you're great enough by 8 or 10 pages, you're not great enough. Yeah, it was like that guy I said. I went to the Detroit and he'd show me 10 pages and I knew it wasn't good enough. When some guys entered the business over the decades, you could look at some of their stuff and say, yes, we need to hire him now. And you hoped he was professional in his attitude and would meet the deadlines and so forth. But more often you get stuff that it's like, okay, this is good. That isn't good. This is all right. Oh, you got to do better here. And you've got to guide and coach them. And it's a process that will take months, sometimes years to get somebody good enough. But you hope that they will stick with it. But so that's my long version. The short version is you want to see from anybody submitting a tight portfolio of exactly what they want you to review. If they want you to be looking at comics, then by all means, send comics. It's got to be sequential pages. Don't letter the pages unless you want me to review the lettering. Don't color the pages if you don't want me to review the color. Send me what you want me to review. If you're sending inks, send them side by side with the pencils so that I can see what you did with them. Did you bring out the best of the pencils? Did you ruin them? Did it look like you inked them with the edge of a Hershey bar? I don't know. And honestly, I don't care what materials an artist uses if he's drawing on paper. He can do mud dipped in with a bent twig to get the effect. As long as I get something.
He can piss on the art. If it looks good, it is good.
Unfortunately, some artists look like they pissed on the art after they were done. And it's a whole different thing.
I bet some do.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, how much personality weighs in? Because I know, like, sometimes you have 2 artists and you have to choose one. And like, what would you do? Would you have a chat with each of them to decide which one would be better to work with? What would you do to
you're talking
access
from the
that?
point of view of the editor, not me as an agent, because the editors are doing the hiring. So okay. So an editor is going to start by looking at the samples. They're going to look at or they're going to ask about the artist's track record. Have they met deadlines before? Are they new at this? What books have they worked on? Oh, the portfolio looks great. You have any whole books they've done that you can send me a PDF of to look at? Well, he's good enough, but because he's not been proven or doesn't have a great track record to show me, I want to have him do a couple of pages as a sample to see if he can deliver. Here's the 2 pages. He's got 3 days to give it to me. That will tell an editor a lot. Whether he's going to get excuses, whether he's going to get the pages, whatever it's going to be. There was a period of time when I was working, I was hiring some artists for my own books. And I did this deliberately with artists that were unproven. I would send them a sample or a few pages of script. And I would say, if you have any questions, ask me. And the script had something that there was no way they could draw it correctly unless they asked me. So it was my way of seeing what their communication skills were like. And if they went ahead and drew it without talking to me about it, then I knew there was a potential problem here, because they were making assumptions rather than just reaching out to me. And I'm right there. I'm very easy to reach on Facebook Messenger or by email or whatever. So that told me a lot right there. And incidentally, the guy who got that job reached out and said, "Hey, I don't get this. What do you mean by this?" And I said, "Oh, here, it's this." "Oh, no problem." And they drew it, they did it right, and they got the job. So there are tricks or ways an editor may do that. Remember that because so many of these artists are in other places all around the world, the editor hasn't met them. Most likely has never done a Skype call or a Zoom call or anything like that. So it's just emails back and forth. And unless that artist is being a real jerk in his emails, there might not be much personality coming across in it, in which case the editor is just going on the basis of the portfolio, or in my company's case, the samples that are up on our website, or any information that I have passed along. And sometimes those editors will say, "Okay, I have a few questions for the artist. Let me get his email. I'm going to contact him directly to talk to him about these things before I send the script." It's like, okay, great. I love it when there's lots of communication there.
Yeah, I think it's really important too. It's like to have both that are accessible, the writer and the artist, and just being able to ping something off somebody, have them get back to you in a timely manner, not days later, because like, oh man, I'm hung up on this panel now because I don't know what you want, so I'm stuck here. So right, so yeah. It's good to have that communication.
Yeah, nobody should be stuck. People can reach out and get things. The other thing that besides the a tight, good portfolio is clear communication. So many artists don't seem to know their own names. By that, I mean, they will send portfolio samples where if they send it as a PDF, it's art PDF or samples.pdf. Unless your name is art or samples, that doesn't help me.
Yeah, if you don't load them, you don't know where that came from.
Yeah. I get so many that the art is one JPEG, art JPEG, sample one JPEG. And what I will sometimes do is get a bunch of samples from people, and they may have come in overnight, and I'll download a bunch of them onto my screen there. And then when I'm talking with an artist or an editor on Facebook Messenger, I'll sometimes have 4 or 5 screens open, be talking to people, and I'm waiting for answers from everybody. Oh, let me go click on that art sample, and I'll start looking through. Wait, who did this? Art 3 JPEG, Art 4 JPEG. Somebody named Art give me this? Okay, I'm not going to go back and search. If the artist doesn't care enough to put his name on his own samples, why should I care enough to chase after him? More important, if he sent it to an editor, why should the editor care enough to chase after who is this guy, if he can go to one of the guys who do know their own names and hire them instead? So that is a really big thing. Occasionally, I will go back into old files and come across, what's this? And I'll click on it. Wow, that's some really nice artwork. Who did? Oh, Art did this.
JPEG.
I have no idea who this guy is. So that person misses out. A few times, I've even posted something on Facebook that somebody sent me this last year. I have no idea who it is, and I'm not going to go back through 20,000 emails to see who might have sent this. As I say, I get up to 300 emails per day.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
So they make it hard for me then they must not want that much attention.
Right.
So yeah.
That's nearly 10,000 a month. This is something. Like, do you have anybody helping you out with that, or you do that?
Sometimes I will send them on to my managers in the other countries, because I have managers in India, in Indonesia, in Brazil, Philippines, Italy, a couple other places, and so I will forward stuff along and say, respond to this if it's good and they've done all the reasonable things, which is why I can no longer do so many of these long involved reviews and have had to resort to these one sentence not good enough, or if they're pretty good, I'll give a sentence or two. But oh my God, the amount of hours of my life that have gone to reviewing artists, people have no concept.
We used to have to pay in the fine art world for reviews like that, and you might give someone $300 for an hour of their time to tell you that you suck, but you put that on your resume to say that at least this person reviewed you, right? So you just had to have that on there. So, oh, he got reviewed by this guy, but that's a real thing. So they were paying for the time, though, to your point.
My wife has said for a couple of decades now, I should be charging for that time.
Yeah.
And I found that, unfortunately, artists trying to break in, they don't have any money.
Yeah, that's true. Right?
A couple of times I said, you need a lot of stuff reviewed here because you got a ways to go. Oh, please give me the time. All right, I'll do that if you'll spend $5 on my Kickstarter.
Right.
Okay. And I give them the review, and they never never did anything on the Kickstarter.
Even share it. It's good. Whatever.
Yeah,
sure it is.
So that's the way it is. But I have across the decades helped so many thousands of artists. I've watched so many of them in all those different countries getting work. And sometimes I'll work with guys and they'll stick with me for decades. I've had some that have only been with me for a few years and then went off. I've had some that I reviewed something, they went off, did their own thing for many years, and then came back. Dave, I reached a plateau of this. How can I get to the next level? And I'll tell them, great. You willing to rep me? Sure. They come on board, and I get them to the next level. So it's been fascinating to see what this life has been. Next year will mark 40 years that I've been in comics, and much of it I've been given back.
You look young. You look young. How old are you?
I'm 63.
No way.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I believe in the power of goods. You must be doing something good.
This is me at 63. Well, my hair used to be here. Now it's up here.
Yeah, it's all right. Look at that.
Power of
look
good.
at us. You look young. Like you don't even have gray hair or anything like that.
Yeah, it's right here. I keep wanting it to just get right here because I want to do the Reed Richards thing.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the gray hair is falling off.
Yeah.
That's why.
Gray hair is all on my chest. It's strange.
Yeah. It is great because we need people to be an interpreter, and you are the guy who are doing the interpretation, between the editors and the companies and the artists.
Well, the wonderful thing has been I've worked with so many editors that and know what they like, obviously, that the editor knows if I send them somebody, they're ready. The editor knows that they're going to meet the deadlines. I don't take somebody on and then try to get them a series first thing. I get them a little job, a 2-page job, a 5 or 10, or a one shot, something where I learn the good, the bad, and the ugly about each artist, letterer, colorist that joins us, so that I can give accurate information to that editor, so he or she knows what they're getting. And so everybody's been vetted. Everybody's been.
that must mean that you're pickier than they are.
In a lot of cases, I think I am. For many years, back when Marvel was exploding with all those books in the late 90s, and we were doing what was 15 or 16 different books for them every month. The editors knew they could call me up. I would have somebody. I'd be able to solve the problem. You remember the Buffy the Vampire Slayer book at Dark Horse?
Sure.
The editor called me, said, I don't know what to do here. I need somebody who can do action but can also do the likenesses. Oh, I've got it solved for you. And I found him an artist, and then they needed another, and then another. And before you knew it, we were drawing Buffy the Vampire Slayer for 12 years or something, and plus a lot of the spin-offs, because the editor knew that he could count on me. So I wasn't giving them substandard work or unprofessional people.
Sure.
And that's made a difference. Every once in a while there's a goof up, but I'd say we got a pretty darn good success rate on the many thousands of books we've done over the years.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I told you we do over 4,000 pages a year just for Simon and Schuster.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How can you pull that off? I mean, I know you have a team behind you.
But I don't know if you can. Let's see if this can work. So, see this spinner rack behind me?
Yeah.
All right. Every book here, Pandora's Bog, Red Sonja, Scooby-Doo, Strawberry Shortcake, Star Wars, Bonsai Girl, The Flash, Justice League. All these books are our people. And so if you look at the stuff we're doing for all the other publishers, and there are so many, so there's not just Marvel, DC, IDW and Dark Horse and so many, Chimera Press and Kingstone, company that does religious comics here. They're a wonderful client of ours. Capstone, which does sets of graphic novels like this. So there's so many publishers that artists don't think of. They think of, I want to work in comics, and they think it's Marvel, DC, and maybe a few others. Well, there's so many others out there, and a lot of them
universe. Yeah.
And a lot of them aren't in the Diamond Comics catalog.
Right.
It's like a book that we just finished. The client was the American Embassy in Peru.
Oh, wow.
So they wanted to do a book about education. It had some superhero-y elements to it, but it was about educational opportunities in Peru. And so we did a wonderful book for that. There's a football star. I'm forgetting what team he played on. His name Ovi Mugeli. He has a foundation that's dedicated to recycling efforts. So we produced a custom comic book for his organization. That's a giveaway, and these are books that pay us thousands of dollars for artists, and so we're getting Marvel, DC rates for these artists on projects that aren't for Marvel and DC, and so it's a good living for these folks. But some of these artists have got to get out of the mind space that Marvel and DC are the only companies out there.
Right.
I get newcomers saying, my goal is to work for Marvel. Okay, Marvel isn't the company that pays the most, but
No.
the fact that you want to work for Marvel is okay. That's nice, but how does that make you different from everybody else that wants to work for Marvel? Well,
Like it looks good in the curriculum.
yeah. But you know, if somebody's good enough, they may get work there, or they may be great artists. But we were talking earlier about Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody as great as Bill Sienkiewicz had not found an editor at Marvel or at DC who was impressed and inspired by what Bill was doing and saying, yes, we will publish this. We will pay this, pay you for this.
If he wasn't the accomplished artist that he was at the time, he would never get the gig. We know that for sure because we talked to his agent. What's his name? Abinanti?
Sal.
Saul Abinanti. We talked to him last week. And, you know, that was a thing because Marvel wanted to have that kind of artistic approach to the Daredevil at the time. But there was some struggle, you know, behind scenes, but he could pull that off. And it was one, I would say, we can talk Marvel before that book and after that book.
Yeah.
Because everything has changed after that.
And it's a case of, as you say, he was a very good established artist already. Editors are less likely to make that leap of faith if it's an absolute newcomer, and I get that. Anyway, we should wrap this up quickly. Any final things?
No, I appreciate it. It's an awesome show, man. We could probably do a second or third if you got some time some point. I know you're a busy man, but yeah, man, you're a wealth of knowledge. We'd love to have you back. So if that's something you're down.
Happy to do it. Think of some subjects and let's keep this light and fun. I hope I didn't get too heavy and dry for you at times.
No, it was awesome. It was awesome. We were getting some comments offline, and people were like, "Oh, what a good show!" So things you couldn't see pop up. So that's cool. Tell us, I guess, if you want the final word, you'll maybe talk about whatever project you're working on, or whatever you want the final word.
If people want to see what we're doing, they can go into Kickstarter under my name, and they'll see that we've published some Bonsai Girl and Exposure and comics like that, graphic novels. I'm doing, as I say, Heroes in Training and Goddess Girls, kids graphic novels for Simon & Schuster that will be out next year. Also doing, did that series of 6 Greek god books. So if you have kids in school, they might be able to buy them through their school. I have a blog at davidcampeti.com with updates about what artists do right, what artists do wrong, and various and sundry pet peeves and advice about breaking into the business. I'm always, it seems, on Facebook, so I'm very easy to reach there.
If you're sure you are,
yeah. Folks, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. You've been really welcoming to us, and I can tell that you're in the business, but being successful hasn't changed you, because for sure, you know, there's some big names that are unreachable, but you were one of the big names, and it was very easy to get in touch.
Yeah, here's the thing. I've learned over the years. I said, if there were more people that would make it easy to help people learn, that would be good for the industry overall. And the fact that I was kind of able to open the doors to bring a lot of Brazilian artists in, that was wonderful. And then I expanded into European artists that weren't already being repped by agents. You know that Filipino artists had been represented in the 70s to be brought in, but the guy who was their agent was ripping them off. It was a bad situation where, you know, if DC was paying $60 a page, the agent was taking 45 and paying the artist 15.
Oh.
And it was a terrible situation. So I went in with a completely open accounting system, and it's like, okay, you're talking to the editors, here's the page rate, here's our commission, here's what we did, and just making it clear and easy for everybody. And that has served me well over the years. So to finish up, if you want to check out our website, glasshousegraphics.com, our animation website, ghsanimation.com, and I'll see you in the comic books.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. It's been awesome. It's been a good show. Thank you, Rogerio, for filling in. Hope John's having fun at his holiday party. We'll be back, I think, next week. We'll be back next week, guys. So hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
Woo.